Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of the Roundabout Way of Fate. This will be part 28, chapter 19, entitled The Internship. Izuku picks at his tempura half-heartedly all throughout lunch. His mind is still preoccupied with his conversation with Sir Night-Eye, wondering what the future will entail. Now he has supposedly interfered with the man's foresight. Kame remains oblivious to his distraction, continuing to incessantly chat about anything and everything as she sits across from him, only occasionally stopping to slurp up some udon. If he wasn't so used to the constant chatter from the Baku squad, he might find her annoying, but instead, her babbling fades into the background as his mind gets lost in thought. After their hug ended, Izuku was kind of tempted to berate Sir Night-Eye for not visiting All Might sooner. How could he leave his friend's side if he knew he was going to die? However, since it's a rather personal matter that Izuku still probably doesn't fully understand the emotions of, he lets it go. He shouldn't involve himself in this any more than he already has. A buzz from his phone distracts him. Kachan, 1:56 p.m. All good? Izuku rolls his eyes and sends a thumbs-up emoji in response. They leave soon after that, Kame refusing his offer to pay for his half of the meal and return to the car. A pretty fancy one, in fact. They're driven by a tall, muscular-looking woman who doesn't speak much, although she does give Izuku the occasional glance. Kame doesn't pay her any attention, so Izuku follows her lead and instead keeps his attention on his new mentor. The Endeavor Hero Agency is a massive skyscraper that Izuku is able to spot easily before they even get close. Somehow, he thinks that it fits the Flame Hero perfectly, especially when he sees the stylized flaming E that adorns the front entrance. The inside is just as luxurious as the outside. Fancy and no doubt expensive decorations visible all throughout the lobby. People bustle about busily, none of them paying much mind to the healer and her trainee as they make their way towards the elevator. When they're finally alone inside the elevator, Izuku mentally blanches at the sight of so many floors. Kame turns to him with a grin. Well, what do you think? Izuku gives her a weak smile in return. It's really big. Kame throws her head back in laughter and pats his shoulder. Yup, that's what I thought when I first came here. Don't worry, I'll only be giving you a tour of the floors we'll be spending the most time on. As a healer in training, you don't really need to know the rest, and as a guest, you don't really get to see the rest. Izuku nods. Right, some of these floors probably contain a lot of classified information. Of course she can't go showing some high school student around the whole agency. I'll show you all the fun stuff first, before we get to the medical wing, Kame promises with a wink. The elevator dings and they step out. Izuku nearly gets shoulder-checked as the man brushes past him in a blur, and Kame scoffs. You may notice that there's a shit ton of people here. Yeah, no kidding, Izuku says, making sure to stay close to her side. That's because there's a lot more to a hero agency than just heroes, she explains. There's intel gathering, a legal department, human resources, all the little cogs that make the clock tick, you know? Izuku nods and asks, What about sidekicks? Oh, the big guy's got about 30 of them. The surprise must show on his face because Kame laughs and shakes her head, bobbed hair swaying slightly. Don't get the wrong idea. Everyone knows that Endeavor's a solo act. The sidekicks usually take care of minor jobs or guard the villains that Endeavor defeats until they can be handed over to the police. They don't get much of the spotlight, but they all seem to be pretty proud of what they do. The flaming sidekickers, that's what they're called. She makes a face at this, and Izuku giggles. Do you think we'll see any? He asks, trying not to seem too eager. Probably. I'm going to show you the lounge first. We might run into some there. They do, in fact, run into a couple sidekicks in the lounge. Izuku does his best not to fanboy out, even though he doesn't recognize them, and tries to pay attention to Kame as she shows him around. The two sidekicks seem to be off-duty and are chatting idly while splayed out across one of the couches, so he doesn't want to bother them. The lounge itself is very nice and luxurious, much like the rest of the building, and Kame promises they can hang out there later. Next, she shows him the dining commons, and Izuku takes the opportunity to mention the connection between his quirk and food. "Lucky!" she whines. "You get an excuse to eat as much as you want, but when I go for a third plate..." She lets her sentence hang, puffing out her cheeks in a childish pout. Izuku laughs. Afterwards, he gets to see the personal gym the sidekicks use to train, the justification for this being he needs to know where to go in case of training accidents. It probably doesn't have anything to do with the way Kame smirks at him as he gawks at two sidekicks sparring with each other. The tour keeps going on for the next 2 hours. Just when Izuku thinks they've reached the last place, Kame takes him somewhere new. It's incredible and overwhelming, and fun and exhausting all at the same time. By the time they finally reach the medical center, Izuku kind of just wants to sit down for a while. "And here we are," Kame announces, gesturing widely to the medical center that is much bigger than Sir Night-Eye's. "Final destination. We'll be spending most of our time here, obviously." The Endeavor Agency Medical Center encompasses an entire floor, looking very much like a large hospital within a building. Rows upon rows of beds line one wall with curtains available on the sides to be pulled whenever they're needed. Izuku glances around at the expensive machinery here and there and notices that there's even a few separate rooms at the other end of the floor. Kame takes him there first, showing him the radiology unit, surgery rooms, the intensive care unit, personal offices, bathrooms, so much more than he could have thought of when imagining a hero agency's medical wing. It basically is just a giant hospital. There's also a lot of doctors and nurses roaming around. Kame weaves past them, seemingly looking for a particular person. "Osaki-san!" she calls out, waving her arm at an older man currently frowning down at a clipboard. He looks up, appearing a bit irritated, but then his expression smooths out when he spots her. "Kame-san, welcome back." His eyes slide over to Izuku, who stares back at him. Something about this guy seems familiar. Kame puts a hand on the freckled boy's back and gently pushes him forward. "This is Midoriya-kun, Recovery Girl's apprentice, remember?" "I remember," Osaki says, holding out his hand. "Nice to meet you, Midoriya-kun. My name is Osaki Kai." Something clicks in Izuku's brain, and his eyes widen in realization. Osaki Kai. He's the healer that got kidnapped all those years ago. The one that villains stole from Endeavor, when was it? Over 15 years ago, maybe 20? Izuku realizes that he's been staring for too long and snaps himself out of his stupor, hastily shaking Osaki's hand. "Hi, hello, I'm Midoriya Izuku." Osaki's wrinkled eyes twinkle with amusement. "What a strapping young man." He retracts his hand and gives Izuku a once-over. "You've been quite the buzz in the medical community. Recovery Girl has spoken highly of you. And your quirk." "Oh, He flushes in embarrassment as his mind blanks on how to respond. Beside him, Kame snickers and puts a hand on his shoulder. "He's a timid one, but he's got spirit, I can tell." "I don't doubt that," Osaki says, glancing between them. "How has your tour been going, then?" "Pretty good," Kame says. "I've saved the best for last. I thought I'd go around introducing him to everyone, since he's gonna be here for a while." Osaki nods amicably and sends them off with well wishes soon after. For the next half hour, Kame practically parades Izuku around the facility. He feels bad when she blatantly interrupts the medics while they're working, but they don't seem to mind. It's as if they're used to Kame's odd antics at this point. There's too many new names and faces for him to remember, but they all greet him kindly with curiosity in their eyes. Izuku wonders if it's because they don't often have healers in training as young as him come by, or if it's because, as Osaki said, he's the buzz in the medical community. Part of him hopes it's the former. As Kame introduces him to people, she also explains more about the medical center. Most of the patients we treat are sidekicks coming back from patrol, she says. But, like I said earlier, Endeavor's kind of a messy guy, so we also deal with, how do I say this? Collateral damage. Izuku blinks and tilts his head. Sometimes he accidentally burns the civilians he's meant to be saving, and if it's bad enough, we take care of them here rather than letting them go to a regular hospital. Since those cases are kind of the big guy's fault, their treatment is free of charge. It's a great way to avoid a lawsuit. Oh, Izuku says, somehow not surprised to learn this. He's seen the way Endeavor fights on TV, and while he's certainly skilled and powerful, there's also a sense of recklessness to his fighting style. He supposes the accidental burns could also be attributed to the generally untamable nature of his fire, but he's more inclined to believe the former to be the cause. It also happens with villains, too, Kame adds. At his surprised expression, she quickly adds, "Not that we ever bring them back here. No. That'd be too much of a risk, but—" She cuts herself off, then switches gears. "Well, since I'm a combat medic, you'll be training as one as well this week. Usually we stay here while the heroes are on patrol and then go if they need us, but if they ever get called out for a particular incident, then we go with them. Of course, we stay away from the fighting, but once the threat's down, we move in." She stops walking, and Izuku does too, turning to face her as she gives him a firm look. "Now, I know that the media and the news, and no doubt your school has taught you to adore heroes and hate villains. But you need to understand this. We, as healers, are a neutral party. Above all else, our duty is to save lives, hero or villain, good or bad. That doesn't matter to us. We are separate from that. We cannot let our personal feelings on a matter get in the way of our work. It's not our place to judge the value of life based on the actions of the individual. For healers, all life is equal. Do you understand?" Izuku stares at her, taken aback. "So, we have to save villains too?" He's never thought about that before. Saving villains. Healing the people that his classmates are learning to defeat. Using his quirk to undo what heroes have done. It feels kind of wrong. However, Kame nods. "Sometimes." She pauses. "Well, actually a good number of times. Many villains don't stop fighting until they're unconscious. I mean, think about it. How do you think a villain would look after a fight with Endeavor? Or even All Might?" Izuku frowns in contemplation. He's never really considered what happens to villains after a fight. Not many people do, really. He's just assumed they're taken by the police. Once the battle's done, all the media attention is on the victorious hero. Anything about the villain is added as an afterthought. As much as he doesn't like the idea of healing villains, he supposes, if he was ever put in the situation, he wouldn't be able to turn his back on an injured person, good or bad. Even if that person was a villain, he could imagine he would still try to save them, if they were really in danger of dying. The thought of letting someone die while he was able to do something to stop it makes him feel nauseous. In the back of his mind, he recalls Todoroki's words during USJ. "Having a soft heart won't benefit you when it comes to villains." USJ was different, though. He just felt bad that Todoroki was hurting those villains in such an unorthodox way. "But all we do is stabilize them," Kame adds hastily, trying to ease his mind. We just make sure they stay alive long enough to make it to the hospital, you know? And there's always a bunch of sidekicks on guard just in case the villains try anything. So you don't need to worry about them hurting you. No, it's okay. I get it, I think. He looks up at her and gives a small, uneasy smile. I mean, they're people too. I guess I kind of like that our duty is to life. That we're neutral. Kame smiles back. It has its perks. You get to boss heroes around when they're hurt. Medical authority, you know. She giggles before sobering up. Anyway, you've had a long day. Why don't we go get some dinner, and then I'll show you where you'll be sleeping at night. He nods gratefully and follows her as she leads the way out of the infirmary. Something niggles at the back of his mind, and he pipes up. Hey, you never mentioned healing Endeavor. Doesn't he get hurt from villain fights? Kame throws her head back and laughs. Oh, you bet. Not that he'd ever admit it, though. If you try to heal him while he's still out in the field, he'll get real snippy with you and insist that he's fine, even if he's literally bleeding from every limb. He likes to put on a tough face when the cameras are out. Osaki-san and I try to remind him that healers have medical authority over heroes, but alas. She shrugs as if to say, what can you do? I usually just try to pounce on him while he's in his office. Only way to heal him. It's like trying to get a cat into a bathtub. He snorts at the comparison. As they walk back to the dining commons, he tries to keep an eye out for Todoroki, but he doesn't find him. Surely he'll see him at some point during the week, even if it is a big building. He wonders how Todoroki's first internship day was. Somehow he can't imagine Endeavor being a very good teacher. Dinner is a relatively calm affair. Kame's vibrant energy seems to be dwindling down, and she doesn't talk as rapidly or as loudly as before their meal. As they eat, Izuku texts Kachan, who complains about his apparently terrible experience with Best Jeanist. Kachan thinks he's made a mistake choosing him, but Izuku reassures him by reminding him that it's just the first day. Surely things will be more exciting later. Never mind that he himself hopes that the rest of the week isn't more exciting than his first day was. There was way too much going on today. By the time Kame leads him to the guest room, he's ready to collapse. He bids her goodnight and takes off his bag, sluggishly changing into his pajamas before flopping face first onto the bed. He only has half a mind to appreciate how comfortable his bed is before he falls asleep. The first thing Izuku learns on his second day of internship is that Kame is a morning person. She knocks on his door at 8 a.m. with a bright smile and a skip in her step. Izuku, on the other hand, has always been a bit of a slow starter. While people like Kame and Kachan are able to wake up fully energized and ready to start the day, Izuku doesn't quite wake up until after he's had time to digest his breakfast. Kame, however, doesn't seem to care. She blabbers on incessantly, while Izuku tries to keep his face from dipping into the bowl of his cereal, rapidly blinking his eyes open every time they start to slide shut. He's in the midst of stifling a yawn, when a particular question catches his attention. By the way, kid, where are you with self-defense? Kame asks. Izuku blearily blinks as his mind struggles to catch up. Huh? Self-defense? She repeats. I know you're in the hero course, but surely they teach quirkless sparring before the kids get to use their quirks, right? Oh, yeah, he says. I've, been taking self-defense lessons since I was 10. Kame nods, looking strangely serious. That's good. It's important for healers to know how to defend themselves. Especially you. A quirk like yours might catch some unwanted attention. Ah, so that's where she's going with this. Oh, yeah, I know. Recovery Girl-san already gave me this talk. He tries not to sound too dismissive. After a pause, he asks, Osaki-san, is he the one that... He trails off, not quite knowing how to ask. Kame seems to understand, though. She straightens up. You know about that, then? Yeah, he says. My doctor told my mother about it as soon as my quirk manifested. It kind of freaked her out, so she always wanted me to take self-defense lessons. Kame hums. Yeah, it freaked everyone out, really. I was barely beginning my training when it happened. Osaki-san doesn't talk about it much, but I'm pretty sure it's why he hardly ever leaves the agency. It was a big scare. I mean, all the hero agencies really tightened up their security around their healers afterwards. That's why I'm always traveling with one of Endeavor's sidekicks. Izuku makes a noise of surprise, and Kame asks, Didn't you notice our driver yesterday? Oh. He didn't realize that woman was a sidekick. Yup. Kame pops the P, then leans closer. Healers aren't really allowed to travel by themselves. Of course, you went to Night Eyes on your own, but since your teacher saw you to the station, you were only ever by yourself during the train ride, and even then you were surrounded by other civilians. But later, when we go to other agencies, or even if we get called into the field, we always have to be accompanied by at least one pro-hero. Izuku must not look too pleased because she adds, It might seem restrictive, but it's to keep us safe. Izuku nods, idly recalling his own near-kidnapping experience. Besides, most sidekicks are happy to hang out with us, and we don't have to drive ourselves anywhere, so that's a plus. I kind of suck at driving. She laughs, and Izuku snorts. Yeah, he could imagine that. The rest of the day is spent in the medical center. He shadows Kame the entire time, watching how she works with the medics and interacts with the injured patients. He's excited to see her quirk in action, only to be mildly disappointed. She said earlier that her quirk speeds up the healing process by 50%, but part of him thought that meant the injury would become 50% healed as soon as she used her quirk. Instead, a wound that might normally take 2 weeks to heal would now only take 1. It's still interesting, but he can see a few potential weaknesses it carries. Kame's quirk wouldn't be too helpful in a critical situation, like if someone was in danger of bleeding to death. Not to mention, since her breath can only reach external wounds, she wouldn't be able to do anything for stab wounds or internal injuries. He could also imagine the risk of her becoming dehydrated if she were put into a situation that required her to overuse her quirk. Honestly, he thinks Osaki would be better for combat medic work. He has a sort of blood manipulation quirk that allows him to influence the healing process of a person's wounds, such as making their blood coagulate and scab. It can't do much about any torn tissues, but that's where his medical expertise comes in. He's great in dealing with cases of blood loss, which Izuku is all too aware is his greatest weakness. It's also interesting to see the way Kame interacts with the injured sidekicks coming back from their patrol. The first sidekick she sees to immediately starts talking about the villain fight he just got into. He's rather dramatic about it, gesturing wildly with his hands and emphasizing the danger aspect of his experience. He's obviously exaggerating just to make himself seem cooler, but Kame just hums and nods along as she treats his wounds. At first, Izuku thinks she's just being nice. Maybe she really likes this particular sidekick for some reason. But then, she does the same exact thing with the next one that comes in an hour later, and for the life of him, he can't understand why. It seems so unlike her to pander to these outrageous tales the sidekicks are telling just to make them feel better. While one hero is in the midst of rehashing today's harrowing battle, Kame gestures for Izuku to come over. She asks him how he would heal this hero's wound, mostly minor lacerations to her left leg, and when he gives his answer, she looks satisfied. He wonders if she'll let him use his quirk, but recalls that he's not allowed to heal pro-heroes until he's licensed, even if he's under the supervision of a medical professional. Maybe he'll be allowed to heal some civilians later. Kame has him patch up the sidekick's leg after she uses her quirk on it. Wrapping up wounds is effortless to him at this point, but she still watches him the entire time. Thanks, kid, the sidekick says once Izuku is finished. Hopping off the bed, she flashes Kame a grin. See you later, Kame-san. Take it easy out there, Kame calls after her as she walks away. Once the hero is gone, Izuku turns to the healer with a confused frown. Kame-san, why do you, act like that? With the heroes, I mean. The woman laughs and starts gathering up the bloodied gauze. You mean, why do I act like such a star-struck schoolgirl? Izuku smiles sheepishly and nods. Kame snorts. 'Cause it makes them feel better. Let me tell you something, kid. Heroes love nothing more than when people fawn over them. They like to be made to feel like the tough guys, you know? They like to feel big. Yeah, but Izuku is still unconvinced. I mean, it's not our job to boost their self-esteem. No, it's not, Kame agrees. But I do it anyway because it makes them easy to manage. Huh? Listen, kid. Throughout your time as a healer, you're going to have to deal with heroes that you probably wouldn't normally get along with too well in a regular setting. But if you tell them what they want to hear, then they'll like you no matter what, and they won't give you much trouble. She turns to him and leans against the bed, pressing the back of her hand to her forehead, dramatically. You've just got to say things like, "That's so cool," or "That sounds scary," or "Wow, you must be so brave." She bats her eyelashes at him, and Izuku giggles. Put on a show and act like every hero you meet is your favorite hero. I don't know if I'd be very convincing, he admits. I'm not much of an actor. Don't knock it till you try it. Trust me, they'll be putty in your hands. She winks before turning and continuing to roll up the leftover gauze. Besides, she chirps, I like making people feel better. Izuku supposes that it wouldn't be too awful to put aside his pride and stroke a hero's ego for a bit. He thinks about his more difficult patients like Kachan and Monoma. The former can be stubborn and irritable sometimes, actually all the time, and the latter, well, he doesn't seem to like anyone in Class 1A. He hums in thought. Sweet-talking sounds a lot better than getting bossy. I suppose it could be worth a shot. All right, listeners, this concludes the first half to Chapter 19 of The Roundabout Way of Fate. The second half to this chapter will be up next. I'd love to hear the thoughts and reactions you're having to everything so far. We're still continuing with this internship experience for Izuku, and I love the way the author has been describing and putting this one together. So drop your thoughts, your comments, reactions below. And of course, just as a reminder, the fic is located on AO3, so you're always welcome to slide over, leaving comments, kudos, and support to the original author as well. I'm sure it's much appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for listening.